again. Oh, and here comes the cat again. I thought that tonight I would share my Google Doc that I made. If you didn't watch my last video, which was also my first video, as I was going through the process of figuring out that I am very likely autistic, I put together a document of everything that I could think of that was possibly autistic about me. And I ended up with 12 pages. I'm not going to go through all of it. Some of it will be separate videos, but I'm just going to jump on in and kind of share what things about myself make me think, yeah, I'm probably autistic. Now let's see, as a very young child, and this is stuff that my mom told me, I was really good-natured, but when I was like 1 or 2 years old, my family hosted a family reunion at our home, and I cried the entire time. Mom had to keep telling everybody she's not usually like this, but my routine was completely thrown off. There were people everywhere, people that I didn't know. It was never quiet, and that bothered me a lot, and so I cried the entire time. I used to really hate having, like, when I would get a hair stuck on my tongue. I don't know why I was getting hair stuck on my tongue, but it stood out to my mom enough that she, remembers and laughs about me coming up to her with my tongue out and a distressed look on my face. And that would indicate to her that she needed to find whatever hair I had on my tongue and pull it off for me. I potty trained myself at the age of 2. Let's see. Moving on to elementary school age, I was terrified to knock on people's doors. I had a friend who lived down the street, and I remember crying and just being devastated because my mom wouldn't go over with me to knock on her door for me so that I could go play with her. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't face the unknown of, like, who's going to answer the door and what do I say when they answer it. And it was just going over to play with my friend, and she came to our house all the time, and yeah, it was just something that was super scary for me. I was very shy. I was very quiet. I was well behaved. I loved reading, drawing pictures, writing stories. When I would play, it usually involved setting up elaborate scenes with my toys, and I think I'd spent more time setting up and imagining the setting and the story background, and just figuring out all of this stuff about the story than I actually spent playing it out. Let's see, at one point in elementary school, I had my hearing tested because there were times that I wouldn't respond to my parents, and they were concerned that I had a hearing problem. Turned out that my hearing was fine, and they determined that I had selective hearing, that it was going in my ears, but it wasn't necessarily registering, or I was ignoring it. I don't remember ignoring my parents, so I'm just thinking it was like a processing thing, or an attention thing or something. I don't know. I had my IQ tested because my grades were really good, and it turns out I do have a high IQ, not genius, just gifted. Let's see, imaginary friends. I should have drawn these out because they're little friends that I would that I would draw or see in patterns. There was this tiger, and he's really just a very simple, basic pattern that I see in like all sorts of stuff. But he's wise and kind and comforting, and like I still look for this tiger face in patterns and stuff. And then there was this little doodle that I made, and I would always draw him exactly the same way, and he had like wiggly lines for arms and hair, and kind of, he was furry, but he was silly and fun. So those were my imaginary friends. There was a time when I wouldn't pee in the school restroom if there was anybody else in the restroom at the same time as me. I got it into my head that I didn't want people to hear the sound that I made when I peed. And so I would either wait in the stall until they left, or I would just pretend that I had gone and flush. And I mean, even if I really had to go, I just wouldn't, because I didn't want anyone else to hear me peeing. So that was, I'm glad I got over that eventually. Let's see. With younger brothers, we did have Legos, and so I did play with Legos some. And there was this one. I had directions on how to make a horse. It was like this big out of just very basic blocks, and I used to make Lego horses like over and over again. I had the directions completely memorized, how to make this horse, and I would build Lego horses in the exact same way over and over again. Not necessarily to play with them, to have them, just to have Lego horses that I made. And let's see, one summer, my mom signed all of us kids up for soccer. There were, I think, 5 of us at the time. Maybe, 5 or 6 of us at the time. I'm from a family of 8, 8 kids. So there were 5 or 6 of us at the time. And so she wanted us to experience team sports and kind of be out of her hair for a little while every day for practicing and stuff. And I did not like that idea. When she told us about it, I was filled with anxiety and dread and just like, no. So I begged my mom to let me not do soccer. And she finally agreed that I wouldn't have to do it, and it was inconvenient for her because she had to drag me around with her instead of being able to drop me off at my soccer practice and stuff. But I just couldn't handle the thought of being on a team and having to do a sport. I've never been very good at sports, and gross motor skills are not my forte. Let's see, middle and high school. I was homeschooled during 6th grade and the first half of 7th grade, and I really enjoyed that. We went, let's see, so halfway through 7th grade, we moved to Japan. My dad was in the military, and so we were stationed at an air base in Japan. And so I went back to public school starting the 2nd semester of 7th grade. For the first few weeks, I was sick every morning before school. At first, I would throw up every morning. I'd have my breakfast, I'd throw up because I was so anxious, and then I'd go to the school bus, the bus stop, and go to school. Eventually, I was able to stop throwing up every morning, but I still felt very sick every morning. It wasn't until I got out into the cold. It was northern Japan, so winter was very cold and very snowy. and the cold air would help me to calm down enough to not be sick anymore. So let's see. For quite a while, after I started going back to school, I carried all of my books in my backpack all the time because seventh graders were, we had to share lockers. And so I was assigned a locker that was already being used by someone who had been using it all year. And I just felt so weird about intruding on her space, even though, you know, it was assigned to me just as much as it was assigned to her. It was my locker too. I just couldn't bring myself to use it. My mom had to help me get my backpack on every morning because it was so heavy with all the books I had to carry. She finally convinced me, you know, it was like every morning she would tell me, okay, you need to stop by your locker and put some books in there. You can't keep carrying all your books all day because it was really starting to bother my back. So I finally did, and it felt just super wrong and awkward, and it was also a big relief, and I eventually got used to using our locker. Let's see. There was a long period of time where I wore the same pair of jeans every single day. They were my favorite. I didn't feel like wearing anything else, and so it just made perfect sense to me to wear this pair of jeans every day. It didn't even occur to me that it was strange until I had a classmate ask if I even owned any other pants. And then I was like, oh, am I not supposed to wear my favorite pants every day? Okay. So I still wore them frequently, but after that I was self-conscious when I did, and I tried to wear other pants a lot more frequently. So it was about middle school-ish time when I started just feeling like there was something that was different about me. I noticed that other people just weren't nearly as shy and awkward as I was, and I was just like always confused and wondering how other people were always able to know what to say and what to do, and how to interact. Let's see. Here's a fun experience that I love remembering, and yes, I am able to do sarcasm, so that's what that was. So when I started going to 7th grade, I only knew one girl in my grade at first because we happened to be in the same class at church. We were the entire class at church. I sat with her and her group of friends at lunch for several weeks. And, you know, middle school and high school lunch is like the social life kind of thing, you know, who you sit with, that's your group, you know. So I sat with them because I knew this one girl, and, you know, I started to feel comfortable with them. I started to get to know them, and I enjoyed spending time at their lunch table, and finally I even felt comfortable enough to talk. That went over well. I cracked a joke one day during lunch, and instead of laughing at my joke, everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at me. And one girl was like, "She talks!" And everyone started laughing, and that was embarrassing, and I was confused, and like, why would they react that way? I kept sitting with them because I didn't have anybody else, but I didn't talk to them anymore after that. Let's see. We were on a youth trip to Tokyo. I was with a group of youth from church, and we had some free time, and so we walked around Tokyo to see the sights and visit some shops and just have a good time together. I stayed at the back of the group and stared at the legs of the person in front of me the entire time so that I wouldn't get lost. I never looked up and saw the sights. Let's see. I was never bullied per se, but I was definitely teased, and I was often left out or ignored by my peers, my classmates. I spent large amounts of time at home reading. I had very little extracurricular activities, really only theater and band. I never really went out with friends outside of organized church youth activities. About the age 14-ish or so, I don't remember exactly, but I had a pet water balloon. I had it for several months. I made a little pouch for it to keep it safe. It had a name. I don't remember what the name was, but it had a special spot on my bookshelf where it lived, its little nest, and it was my pet water balloon. Yeah, I'm weird. I had very, very good grades. I got straight A's. I was valedictorian, so top of my graduating class. I got along better with my teachers than my classmates. I was teacher's pet, goody two shoes, brown nose, all that stuff. I borrowed friends. I spent 9th grade and 10th grade hanging out with my older sister and her group of friends. They graduated, and then I spent 11th and 12th grade hanging out with my younger sister and her group of friends. I never really had my own group of friends except for in the 8th grade, and that was because I was adopted by a girl who became my best friend. She helped me to be a part of a group, and then she moved, and that was sad. Let's see. We would have monthly church youth dances, and I was only ever asked about 2 times during each dance. The whole dance, I was only ever asked to dance 2 times each time. There were other girls, some of whom I thought were much less attractive than me, and they were dancing every single slow song, and I could never figure out what was so wrong with me that the boys weren't asking me to dance and they were asking these other girls to dance. And at some point during every single youth dance, I would end up running off to a separate room to cry and to kind of recover from being overwhelmed and from just being ignored. And I always had such high hopes for these youth dances. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. And I always ended up in the bathroom or a classroom crying because it wasn't so much fun. There was just so much music and socializing and people, and I wasn't being asked to dance, and I wasn't like everyone else, and it was really, really hard. Okay. One time, my dad scolded me for getting the bath mat wet after I took a shower. It had never occurred to me not to. That's what the bath mat is for. And later my mom told me, that's just one of his little pet peeve things. He's just weird like that. You're totally allowed to get the bath mat wet. You're allowed to step out dripping wet, dry off on the bath mat. That's what it's for. But despite her reassurances that it was just my dad being weird, I spent years having to completely dry myself off in the shower before I stepped out onto the bath mat. I just could not bring myself to get the bath mat wet because of one instance of my dad scolding me for it. It wasn't until just a few years ago, as a fully grown adult with children of my own and everything, that I was able to slowly work myself up to drying off on the bath mat instead of inside the shower. I started by just drying my feet off before stepping onto the bath mat, and now I can do it to where I step out fully wet, like a normal person. But if there's no towel or mat on the floor, I will still dry off completely in the shower because I cannot step on the bathroom floor with wet feet. Can't do it. Nope. So that was an experience. Um, I had a huge collection of keychains, like big old wad of keychains. I didn't have any keys to put on them. I just collected keychains. I had them all hooked together in just this one big giant bundle, and I would get out my bundle of keychains, and I would I would take time and look at each one and just kind of go through and enjoy holding them and kind of stroking the soft, heavy one. I like the ones that are smooth and kind of heavy for how big they are. I like the way they feel. So, yeah, I had a keychain collection. Let's see, college and young adult. I didn't do a whole lot of dating, but I did have a couple boyfriends before meeting my husband, or the man who would eventually be my husband. There was this one young man that I was dating who told me that he felt like he didn't know who I was, like I was like mysterious and I never really opened up. And this was really devastating to me because I thought that I had been. I felt closer to him than I had ever felt to anyone before, except possibly my older sister, who's like my bestest friend. I was like, I don't know what more he expects. I don't know what else to do. I mean, how do you open up to someone? I was confused. I didn't know what else I could do. So yeah, dating. I was occasionally asked on dates, rarely asked on second dates, because I never really knew how to behave on a date, how to make myself attractive, how to flirt. When I tried, it was awkward and not always well received, and so I would just kind of spend the entire date trying to look pretty and not really saying much, and apparently that's not how you get second dates. Okay, there was one time I went to take a test at the testing center. It was the last day that test was available. So I got to the testing center and it was closed because I didn't realize that it closed early on Saturdays. And I shut down. Like, not right away. It happened gradually, but like I started walking home and eventually I just kind of like sat down on a bench and just sat there for about half an hour in the freezing snow. I finally was able to get myself up and moving again. I was like, I spent the whole time just I need to get up. I mean, it's really cold. I shouldn't just be sitting out here. What do I do? How do I get myself up? But I finally got myself moving. I went to my boyfriend's house because we had agreed to meet for dinner. I couldn't really explain to him what had happened. I didn't have the words to express the experience that I had just gone through. But I finally made him understand that I hadn't taken the test and that I was freezing cold, and he wrapped me up in his heated blanket and made me dinner. I was able to make up the test for like reduced points, but I aced it because I ace tests. That's what I do. Anyway, okay, so that is sort of chronological stuff. Then I just listed a whole bunch of like just general, as I think of it, I add it kind of stuff. So this is all very random. This is turning out longer than I thought it was going to be. All right, general mental health. I have a history of depression, severe postpartum depression, and general anxiety. I tried therapy several years ago, but I felt like it wasn't really making any progress and it was just very uncomfortable, so I stopped going. I've been on and off antidepressants since age 26. I'm currently taking Prozac. Started having suicidal thoughts and urges as an adult, and I started having panic attacks at age 33. I've always felt like I was on the outside looking in and not really able to relate to the people around me. I form close relationships with objects, plants, and animals, and not so much with people. For example, one summer when I was a child, I stayed with my grandparents over the summer and I developed a friendship with a tree in their front yard. Each stuffed animal or doll that I had a name, a personality, and each was a dear friend, and I still have many of my stuffed animals and dolls from my childhood. I had, in addition to my collection of keychains, I also had a collection of beads and little tufts of rag from a rag rug. They were my treasures, and I kept them in a little treasure box, and I think I still have it. I always feel really close connection to animals. Stray cats and dogs, pet cats and dogs, insects, cows, horses. Like even as an adult, I was out on a walk a while ago, and I came across this little suburban farm in my neighborhood, and there was a cow by the fence, and I was like, I had to walk up to it and say hi and talk to it and give it grass and stuff. As a teenager, we went camping, and there was a daddy longlegs in our tent, and I named it Mrs. Nesbit, and it kept me company, and I was really sad the morning that we left. It was dead under a sleeping bag, and I was very sad about that. Let's see. I talk to myself a lot, even in public. I think it's not all that noticeable. It's usually very quiet. Sometimes I'm just mouthing words, and it's really nice to have like the masks and stuff like that we've been using throughout the pandemic, because then people really can't even tell that I'm talking to myself. Let's see. Starting in my teens, I started having like this imaginary audience. I would like imagine somebody following me around and watching everything I do while somebody else narrates and explains like why I do things. Yeah, we've established I'm a little weird. I often find myself mimicking facial expressions while watching movies or TV shows. I find that if I make the expression, I'm better able to recognize and kind of feel the emotion that character is portraying. Let's see, change is super difficult and stressful for me. It takes a long time for me to feel comfortable in new situations. I need to know plans ahead of time, and if plans change, it's disorienting and upsetting. Let's see, I kind of went over this before, but I'm like physically clumsy and awkward. I always hated sports and PE, and I did really poorly in those areas. Trying to understand and implement sports rules was overwhelming, and when I did try, I inevitably messed up. It was always just like bizarre to me that people could play sports and like just always know what to do. So this was embarrassing during team sports, during like PE class and stuff, because I was constantly letting my team down, either by flinching away when I was supposed to do something, like, oh, the volleyball is coming straight at me, somebody else get it. Or deciding, okay, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to actually try and go for it, and I would miss the ball or do the wrong thing. Yes, I hit the ball and it's going out of bounds, score for the other team. So I was always picked last or close to last on any team. I was a very slow runner. I still am. Let's see, as an adult even, when I try something that requires grace and coordination, I've tried like ballroom dance, hula hooping, Zumba. I can handle basic steps, but I look ridiculous, and anything complicated is overwhelming and just never really works out. Eye contact. I have learned to maintain eye contact. I can do it, but it's extremely uncomfortable and overwhelming. I once read the phrase, equally vulnerable and invasive, and that describes it really well. So I tend to try to maintain eye contact when I'm listening to someone, because I want them to feel like I'm listening and I'm getting what they're saying. But it feels so unnatural that it's like all that I can focus on. So I'm like, am I doing it right? Where do I look? Left eye, right eye? Do I look just like right vaguely in the middle, or can I look at their nose? Is that okay? And is this too much eye contact? Is this enough eye contact? And that's what's going through my head, and it's really uncomfortable. So on the outside, it looks like I'm listening, I'm hearing, I'm understanding, because I'm looking at their face and I'm nodding and I'm vocally responding. Okay, yeah, yeah. But in reality, I can barely focus on what is being said, and I end up missing most of it, and I don't remember half of the conversation afterward because so much of my attention is focused on trying to do eye contact right. Um, I hear and understand so much better when I'm looking down or to the side, down and to the side, when I'm looking away. That is so much more comfortable for me. When I'm actually talking, eye contact is even more difficult and like almost impossible. It's so hard to do eye contact while I'm talking because I can't formulate my words if I'm focusing so much on looking at the person in their eyes. Okay, when socializing, I pick up the mannerisms of the people I'm around. It's like I'm physically putting on a mask or playing a character in a performance. I can feel myself doing it, and I can't help it. So like I'll be walking along the hall, and then someone will stop for a conversation, and like physically I change, like, oh, hi, yeah, okay, yeah. And then when they leave or I leave and I'm alone again, I drop the mask and I go blank. Like physical difference in the way I look and the way I behave based on who I'm around. And I've done that for years and years. I have a really difficult time with conflict and with negative feedback. I cry easily when scolded or criticized. This one's embarrassing, but typical for people with autism. I've never been good at maintaining basic hygiene. Once in high school, I went about 4 months without brushing my hair. It was awful when I finally did brush my hair because it was so tangled and matted, and all those hairs that come loose and hadn't been brushed out, and so it was awful. At most points in my life, I would only shower once a week, though usually I needed it more often. It wasn't part of my routine. I am doing better about that now. I have a habit builder app, and I'm keeping track of like showering more often than once a week. I used to go days or even weeks without brushing my teeth. I would just like use my fingernails to scrape off the buildup every few days. I'm better about that now too. I brush and floss every day. Thank you, Habit Builder app. I always wear my hair pretty much the same way. Right now it's either ponytail, braid, or bun. It takes less than a minute to do. If a hairstyle takes longer than a minute or two, like I might do it for a few days or even a few weeks, but inevitably I end up going back to super quick, though less flattering style. Like I know that I do look better with my hair loose and down around my face, but it moves and it gets in my face, it gets in my eyes, and I have to constantly be moving it and messing with it, and I'd rather not. I'd rather just stick it back and leave it alone for the day. So one of my requisites, like this is absolutely required when I get my hair cut, is that it has to be something that requires absolutely no, or not, requires almost no effort to style. When I get it chopped really, really short, which I often do, I say, okay, look at my hair, take in the texture and the wave and everything, and give me a hairstyle that I can maybe sprunch a little product in it and just go, because I will not put in more effort than that. I just won't. Most of my life I have worn little to no makeup. I'm not very skilled at makeup. It feels unnatural, it feels uncomfortable, It makes my reflection look strange to me because it's not what I'm used to seeing. I cannot sleep without my ears being covered. I have to pull my hair down over my ears, like I'll go like this, or they just feel too cold and it's really uncomfortable. When I get my hair cut really short, I have to leave that part of it long enough to pull down over my ears. When I nap on the couch, and I take a nap like almost every day, I put a throw pillow over my head. So like I'm laying on my side and I'm sandwiched. There's a throw pillow here and a throw pillow here. And it keeps my ears warm. It blocks out some light and sound. So like I said, at night I sleep with my hair over my ears. I wear earplugs, sometimes a sleep mask. Let's see. It takes me a long time to get fully comfortable before going to sleep. I have to adjust certain things over and over again. Like lay the blanket just right over my shoulder, and nope, now I need to do over here, and nope, now the blanket, and my hair, and fix, and blanket again. So yeah, I'm just like fidgeting and adjusting over and over again, for usually at least 20 minutes, sometimes longer. I had to train myself to smile when I was pleased with something, so that others would know that I was pleased. Things like haircuts. I trained myself to smile after a haircut and say, "Oh, thank you, it looks great," so that the hairdresser would know that she had done a good job. When I receive gifts, I've trained myself to smile and say thank you and stuff. The more pleased I am with something, the harder it is for me to act pleased because it feels less genuine. Like it's when I really want to enjoy something, I don't want to have to express how I feel. I just want to feel it and not have to worry about what is my face doing. Is everyone around me able to understand that I am enjoying myself, or that I am pleased with my hair or whatever. So I would rather not express my gratitude or enjoyment or whatever. I'd rather not have to. But like I said, I know that other people tend to want to know, when they've given me a gift or styled my hair or done my makeup or done something for me. They would like to know that I am grateful and that I like what they have done or given. So yeah, I've had to train myself to not just keep it inside. I find it hard to make and keep friends. If the other person does all of the work of maintaining the relationship, it can work. But I am incapable of being the one to keep things going. If it's up to me, it will die down. Not because I don't want to be friends, but because I can't do it right. It's not intentional. I just can't put myself out there and do whatever it is that needs to be done to keep the friendship. Same in conversations. Like, I can keep up a conversation and, listen and respond appropriately, though not always genuinely. But like, I have to be the passive one. Somebody else, the other person I'm talking to, has to be the one to keep things going, or it will just peter out. But like during conversations, it takes me a long time to process what is being said and how I really feel about it. So sometimes I will intentionally or unintentionally agree with an opinion that is not my own, or voice a feeling that I don't really feel, and I don't really recognize what I've said as not quite true until later, when I'm going back and processing the conversation and thinking about what they said and what I said, and oh, I said that, but I don't think I meant that. Huh. And then like beating myself up for saying things wrong. It's confusing to me that there are people who are naturally good at having conversations. Like, They know what to say, what to ask, what facial expressions to make, and it just comes naturally to them. I'm constantly analyzing whether I'm doing anything wrong, like the whole time I'm talking to someone. And when I do feel like I'm doing something wrong, I don't know what it is or how to fix it. So it's just overall very uncomfortable. Let's see. I feel very uncomfortable if I am expected to be in charge of something. I am a follower. I naturally defer to anyone that I feel might have even the slightest bit more authority than me. The only exception to this is with my husband and kids. I do tend to defer to my husband for things like, where to sit in a restaurant or theater or, just simple things. But yeah, with my family, I am able to relatively comfortably take charge with him and with the kids if it's something that is important to me. But most of the time, I defer. Like, I do not like being in charge. I struggle when ordering food at a restaurant and almost always end up choosing the same thing or similar things every single time. I don't generally like trying new restaurants because I don't know what I will want to eat there. I don't like knowing if they'll even have something that I can eat. I do try to eat a plant-based diet, so that does come into play. There's just a lot of places where it's hard to eat whole food plant-based. But even before that, before switching to eating that way, ordering at restaurants has always just been really challenging. And I take like a really long time deciding what to order. And then, like I said, I end up ordering just what I ordered the previous time. Driving causes me anxiety, especially when I'm driving someplace for the first time, like I've never been to that place before. Freeways, merging, hate them. It's stressful. I got my license at age 18. And words are hard. In America, you can get your license at 16. But I was 18 before I got mine. I aced the written portion, but if I had only missed one more thing on the driving portion, I would have failed the driving portion of the test. I have a hard time driving at night. The lights are overwhelming and distracting. Especially if I'm wearing contacts. Usually I just wear glasses, but even then it's weird. It refracts the light weird and does weird things to it, and it's hard to drive at night, especially if it's raining. I hate driving in the rain. Anyway, I used to get lost frequently when driving. I would misunderstand the directions that someone had given me and end up driving around aimlessly and desperately. This is less of a problem now that I have the smartphone with GPS. That is a lifesaver. When I get verbal directions from someone, it's really stressful. I have to write everything down in as great a detail as they are willing to give me. I have to have the person repeat the directions several times so that I can just process it and really get a feel for what I'm doing. When my husband and I were dating, we met in college, and then we, over the summer, went back to live with our families, and he lived a few hours away, between 2 and 3 hours away. And he was telling me over the phone how to get to his house, because I was going to drive over and visit. And it took at least 20 minutes of very detailed and repeated instructions before I was tolerably comfortable with even just the idea that I could drive there on my own. So the entire drive there a few days later was harrowing and really hard, even though, it was a fairly simple route. There wasn't anything complicated about it, but I had never been there, and I had only received verbal instructions on how to get there, and it was terrifying. I count stairs while I climb them. When I climb multiple flights of stairs, I try to make sure to start each flight on the opposite foot that started the previous one. So, if I go up a flight of stairs and it's right, left, right, left, right, left. No, actually, it may be that I start with the opposite. It depends. I have a system. If it's an even set of stairs, then I do the same foot that started because it's not the same foot that ended. But if it's an odd number of stairs, so it's like right, left, right, then I have to start the next flight of stairs with my left. So I guess it's more starting each flight on the opposite foot that ended the previous one. Yeah, that makes more sense. Let's see. I often repeat in my mind things that I have heard over and over again. I also repeat myself under my breath sometimes. When I'm stressed, I find myself saying repeatedly to myself, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, everything's fine. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine, everything's fine. I say those words over and over. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine, everything is fine. I'm having to repeat myself now. I find it difficult to switch topics in conversations, and I will often return to something that we were talking about previously instead of continuing to whatever the topic has moved on to. This especially happens when I'm talking to my husband, so we'll be like having two separate conversations basically. I'll say something about topic A and he'll say something about topic B, and then I'll talk more about topic A and he'll talk more about topic B. Yeah, it's interesting. With other people, I tend to try to not do that so much because I know that it's hard for other people to keep up with that kind of conversation. So I just don't really add to the conversation when it moves on to something else, and I'll just keep thinking about what we were talking about before. I have a really difficult time communicating my emotions. The stronger the emotion, the harder it is for me to talk about it, and during really strong emotions, it can be nearly impossible for me to talk at all, especially negative emotions. After social situations, it takes a long time for me to recover. And during this recovery time, I am stressed, irritable, tired, and need to be alone. I find being in a crowd overwhelming. I can handle it up to a point, but the longer I'm exposed to it, the more overwhelming it is, and I start to feel the need to escape and or withdraw. This also applies to when my kids are climbing over me and trying to get my attention. It's overwhelming, and I want to just leave the situation. This is really long. Let me see how much I have left. Yeah, I'm going to split this into 2 videos because this is just, yeah. So this has been part 1 of my super mega long list of things that are probably autistic about me. I will film a second part where I continue to go through this list, and yeah, so I will see you next time. Thanks for hanging in there for this long video. Bye.